All right. Well, our speaker tonight is Jack Molisani, and I'm going to do this out of order from my notes. Jack is an STC fellow and the president of ProSpring Technical Staffing, an employment agency specializing in content professionals, both contract and perm. And he's also the author of Be the Captain of Your Career, a new approach to career planning and advancement, which hit number 5 on Amazon's career and resume bestseller list. I can say I read that book actually and wrote a review of it at one point. And it was a very courageous book because he was going through a bad time at the time, as I recall. Jack also produces the LavaCon conference on content strategy and TechCom management, which will be in person in New Orleans in October. And Jack is going to give away to one lucky attendee tonight as a door prize. If you stay until the end of this presentation, one free registration. Is that right?
Yep,
And
in person or remote, whichever you prefer.
are you going to pay their hotel too?
No, you got to pay your own way there.
Okay, well, all right. The title of Jack's talk tonight is The Future of TechCom Structured Authoring, the Internet of Things, and Documentation 4.0. What a mouthful. In many companies, various forms of content are created and maintained by different departments, often using different authoring tools. Even a single documentation team can have multiple manuals that need to be updated every time there is a product change. This leads to content inconsistencies, duplicate effort, and a less than ideal content experience. In this session, companies can move product content in a what?
Yeah, that's a typo. Skip that sentence.
All right. This enables content teams to create the content once, then deliver that content when the reader needs it, in the language the reader needs, and formatted for the device on which they are reading it. Finally, Jack's going to show how integrating a CMS with other enterprise systems can not only improve the user experience, but can also change your documentation teams from cost centers to revenue generating profit centers. Okay, Jack, take it away.
All right. All right, and let me share my screen. Okay, can you see my slides?
Yep.
Okay. So I am going to be asking some questions of the audience. So everybody get your chat window open, and Alt-H opens your chat window if you don't have it. And off we go. All right, so ground rules and warnings. If you've never heard me speak before, just because we're virtual doesn't change that fact. This is group participation, not me talking at you for 45 minutes. Second, your mileage may vary. Try what works and see if it works for you. If it doesn't, change it, throw it out the window, or modify it to suit your particular needs. And finally, as we just illustrated, that some cultures believe that to attempt perfection is to anger the gods. So artists in those cultures purposely leave a little imperfection in any art they create. So finding any typos in here tonight? Just not angering the gods. All right. We've already talked about who I am. We're going to talk about what is structured authoring, what is documentation 4.0, and how you can turn the documentation department of your organization, what might be considered a cost center, into a revenue generating profit center. Okay, books versus digital. One of the things that I love about books is you put the words there and they stay, which might work well for things like the 10 Commandments that haven't changed much, if at all. Not so true for dynamic digital publishing. So we're going to look at how can we publish documentation that's always up to date, always correct, and always delivered where and when it's needed. All right, so here's one of my poll questions. How many people are authoring currently in Microsoft Word or FrameMaker? Just start typing, I'll read them out, go. You can send it to everyone, Arbortext and Microsoft Word. Okay, good. Markdown, static HTML. Interesting. Microsoft Word and Google Docs. Mostly Word, Google Docs, and more Google Docs. So it looks like majority of the answers are still not writing in structured authoring. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Now, everyone, how many of you are still delivering documentation in PDFs and static HTML? All right, where you got your Word document and you publish it 8.5 by 11 PDF. Okay, yep, delivering PDFs. Okay, good. So that's a good smattering of what everybody's doing. All right, some of the problems with this traditional approach to documentation is that oftentimes information is developed by various departments. Tech writing is doing their content, training is doing their content, marketing is doing their content, and there is a bunch of content that could or should be shared that's not, right? Changes must be made in multiple places, introducing inconsistencies. And my favorite example of this is Capital One. I went to make a purchase 1 year, and it was in a different state, an unusual amount, and they denied the purchase. So now I just tell them when I'm traveling. The problem is when you go to their website, the option is called specify travel dates. But if you go to their 800 number, that same option is called fraud management. First of all, I want to prevent my fraud, not manage it, but they're not calling the same thing in the same company. So clearly they're not talking to each other. And then this problem is multiplied if you got multiple products from multiple customers and multiple product lines, all right? So it almost becomes impossible to keep that many changes in Microsoft Word. Take a company like Cisco Systems that has 300 products, each of which needs an installation guide, a support page, a promotional video, a promotional brochure. Multiply that by the 26 languages they translate into worldwide. It would be absolutely impossible to keep all that content around in a Google Doc. So let's see how we can do it. The solution is to move all that content into a database. And that database is known as a content management system or a component content management system. But for the purpose of this presentation, I'm just using the term CMS, okay? And the way you get content into a CMS is called structured authoring. All right, what's the difference between traditional authoring and structured authoring? In traditional authoring, like Microsoft Word or FrameMaker, content is formatted as it is typed. In my example here, we're applying a heading 1 style. God forbid the whole manual is in normal, where you just overrode it with bullets and bolding. But still, you are formatting as you go. Type, 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 format, right? Applying a style, applying a style. Often, as we heard earlier in the chat window, the content is published in PDF. That PDF is normally the same size as the original document, often 8.5 by 11, because that's what we used to print manuals on paper size of. And that worked when we were actually delivering manuals that we printed on paper. The problem is now more and more customers are consuming content via mobile devices. It's really hard to read an 8.5 by 11 PDF on a cell phone. You're scrolling up, you're scrolling down. Some of the readers will reformat it for you, but not all do. So one of the things that you should be doing is looking at your statistics and find out what devices are people reading your content from. or from which they are reading your content for your grammarians. Now, in structured authoring, you don't format the content as it's entered. The content is formatted when it's published. In this example, there's a title and you just type in a title. All right, they want a short description, you just type it in text. You don't care if it's bolded, none of that. And then in this paragraph or in this thing, and then you just fill out this form. It's like filling out a form letter. Somebody ahead of time has already designed the template. All you have to do is just type. And there is a lot, I don't have a specific number of, what's the word, where you're much more productive because you're no longer formatting. And that's not half the work, but a lot of the work. So in my previous slide, I said that the content is formatted when it's published. For example, if I am reading a document, and websites often do this, that if it's called responsive design, the content server knows what device you're reading it from and how big the device is. So if you're reading a document on a big external monitor, you may see 4 columns of text. For a laptop, you might see 3 columns of text. For an iPad or a Surface, you may see 2 columns of text, and a mobile device, 1 column. All right, so again, we are publishing the content when it's formatting the content when it's published, not when it's authored. So Azure CMS is detecting the device on which you're publishing. It opens up a wide range of devices. Karen McGrain, who wrote Content Strategy for Mobile, uses a great analogy. She calls content in the zombie apocalypse. Back in the day, we went from like printed documentation. Oh my God, we got to now do PDF. The sky is falling. No, the sky is not falling. Oh, we had wind help. The sky is falling. No, the sky is not falling. And eventually we had Google Glasses and cell phones and tablets. And her point was, if you put all this content in a CMS, it doesn't matter what the next publishing paradigm is, right? You could be printing to jumbotrons, or as she said, I can't wait for toaster printers. As long as your content is in a content hub like a CMS, you can publish to the web, you can publish to mobile, you can publish to wearable devices like watches, via NAR, which I'll come back to later, even a jumbotron. Okay, kiosks on a campus, it really doesn't matter as long as you've got that content in a CMS, so it could be formatted for any device on which they will see it in the future. Benefits. First is content reuse. Acronym COPE, create once, publish everywhere, right? Say your company updates its legal disclaimer or copyright page. Instead of having to go to every single book in which you use that copyright statement or legal disclaimer, you update it once, you publish everywhere, you have to make one change, not 135 changes. Localization. It's incredibly expensive to localize documentation in multiple languages, not let alone 26 languages. In the old days, if you updated a Word document, you would have to send the whole Word document, and then when it comes back, desktop publish for each language. Now, you can just say a paragraph changed in your CMS. Richard mentioned topic-based authoring, because we're storing the content in small enough chunks, topic by topic. You can then send that one topic out for translation. The translation languages come back in 26 languages still in your CMS. And then when a user in, say, Portugal goes to access your content, we see they want it in Portuguese and format it on whatever device they're using, right? So the consumer always, one, sees the current version in their preferred language, formatted for their preferred devices, right? It really, really improves the content consumption experience. Okay, so this is where we're going to transition now. Now that we have all of our content in a CMS, what else can we do with it? And this we're going to look at Industry 4.0 versus Documentation 4.0. There are some parallels. So Industry 1.0 was back when they had the steam engine and a rotary motion engine. And we compare that to writing like we've done for hundreds of thousands of years, right? Then Industry 2.0 was the development of interstate railways and telegraph, where you could communicate instantly or get to any place almost quickly, as opposed to covered wagons and postal mail. The similarity for documentation was the printing press. Suddenly now you could Gutenberg's press, you could print a document, and it's not just handwritten by monks in a monastery. The lay people could finally own their own copies of books. Industry 3.0 was the computer revolution. Digital devices, computers, internet, we had digital documentation. Industry 4.0, interestingly enough, was going into factories and having the machines talk to each other, the Internet of Things, where it's no longer somebody going down on the floor and pulling a lever to make a machine do something. A lot of the automation, manufacturing could be automated. We're doing similar things in documentation 4.0. How can we not just print a user manual, but get your content on a device anywhere, when and where it's needed? Let's look at some examples of that. So in the Internet of Things, you are having content could be displayed on a refrigerator, God forbid, on a display panel, on a device. You may not know where that content is being displayed. But you can also then, once you've got your documentation in a CMS, pull information from your customer relationship management system. If you're manufacturing, you pull information from your enterprise resource planning system, right? If you're doing, say, user documentation, and your company is selling something like an oil pipeline or a conveyor belt system, and you have to create a bid, one of the things you can do by having your CMS integrated to your Illustrator parts catalogs, right, is you can pull that information directly into the bid. You can pull those descriptions directly from your CMS and deliver that cost bid to your customer, so they know exactly what they're getting with the most current parts, the most current pricing, because it's all connected, right? No longer is documentation over there and marketing over there and sales over here. Let's look at another example. All right. So very busy diagram. You can read it later, but the most important parts are in the interactive service portal, your CMS, right? Yes, your manuals live there. Yes, you could publish your manuals, but there's so much more. In a manufacturing environment, things have to be serviced, right? So you have not only got repair manuals, and you have your training materials, right? And maybe video and PDFs. But what's interesting is it's integrated with your e-commerce platform. So if they go to look up in the documentation, how do I replace my blank? And they go, oh, this is how you do it. And here's how you order the part at the same time. I mentioned integrated part catalogs, illustrated part catalogs. This is what they used to look like. By now, by pulling those into your CMS, you could have your, here's the procedure on how to replace this part or rebuild this engine. And by the way, here are the parts you need to do that. Would you like to order them? Click here. So now you are leveraging your documentation to make a sale. So it's now a profit center, what used to be a cost center. And how many people work for companies where they put as little money into documentation as possible because they wanted an acceptable level of quality, because it was a cost center, right? It was a commodity. Well, now that we're integrating sales and documentation and marketing all into a single platform, you're now generating revenue. You're now attracting new customers. Yeah. And it's all because you've got your content management system is integrated with these other systems within the enterprise. Okay, in the olden days, you'd be in a control room and a buzzer would go off, beep, 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 error 25. What they did, pulled out a binder, started looking through a manual to see, okay, what do I do now? Especially if you're in a nuclear regulatory control plant, right? Where in the newer days, we've automated a lot of those alarm systems and flow diagrams. Wouldn't it be cool if you get that alarm 25, instead of having to go into the user manual somewhere, even if it's online, just embed that content right there in the user interface. Error 25, here's what you do if there's error 25. So now your documentation is part of the user experience. A lot of this is being done by UX writers, but I assert that's our domain as tech writers. We are just delivering it in the same delivery platform that they're looking at the software itself. Okay. Again, you're making the user experience easier and better. Even better, someone could go out on the, say, control room floor. And this could be, I don't know, a pipeline. It could be a manufacturing facility. It could be the air conditioning unit in a corporate office building. And if there's a problem, you don't go beep, beep, beep. I have to go back to my documentation. You display that what to do next right there on the device. So this device would be connected to your CMS over an internet connection or a local LAN. But again, you're pulling up your content when it's needed, right where it's needed, not forcing them to go back and pull out a manual, not forcing them to take out an iPad and look through your online help. It's right there when it's needed, as it's needed. Even better, if something needs to be repaired or replaced, just go out on the floor of your building with either a VR headset or maybe a tablet that you just show over the part and it goes, oh, replace this. This is how you do it. And it gives you the instructions right in your display. How cool would that be? All right. Long way from printing out a PDF and having them to carry it down to the shop floor. All right. So who benefits by moving your content to structured authoring? Well, the writers do for sure. You're more productive. You're no longer burdened with formatting it, right? You can then pull in training documentation and reuse that documentation, right? Illustrators are pulling your illustrated part catalogs into the sales cycle, so they're included. Support personnel are no longer having to carry around big repair manuals or trying to find what they're looking for on an iPad, scrolling through PDFs after PDFs. Service engineers can put on their Google glasses and just pull up the content they need. Sales are now generating revenue from the content you display right in the user interface. And two examples of this that I love to parrot is one of the cell phone companies on their support page. You have to log in so it knows what device you have. If you, back in the days when we could replace our actual batteries in the back of the cell phones, if you looked up how to replace your battery, it would say, hey, here's a coupon just to upgrade to the next phone. So again, they're using it's technical support, it's user documentation, but right next to it is marketing content. And they're being pulled from either different content management systems, because often marketing has their CMS and TechComm has their CMS, but you're integrating it in one seamless screen for the end user or the customer, as I like to say, right? Another example is if you go to look something up in your tech support page and it knows who you are, it sends off, it triggers an email in your marketing system and says, hey, we see that you looked up how to, replace your GoPro battery. Here's a coupon to buy a brand new GoPro 2000. Click here to order, right? Now that's more just marketing, but it was triggered from your tech support, your tech writing that you put it online from your CMS. Okay. Who else benefits from this? Customers. Far better product experience. They don't have to go search for the help they need. It's right there in the user interface. The content is always current because you're pulling it up dynamically. If you have a physical plant like AC units, networks, manufacturing, you've got lower equipment downtime. because they don't have to go find the part and order the wrong part, because they used to look up, oh, well, this is the part I need. And if they transcribe the number wrong, they get the wrong part. Now they got to ship back and order another one. Time is money. By just clicking on it, you are guaranteeing they are ordering the correct part for the procedure they need. And easy to purchase needed equipment on top of that. Finally, your organization benefits. You have faster time to market, right? It's you don't have to send out the documentation and have it desktop published for every single language, because don't forget, you need to leave more room for German than you do for English or other languages. Again, lower translation costs because you can leverage translation memories, and you're only translating what has changed. So you're not constantly retranslating the same content over and over again. It's easier to sell to customers. You're betting the sales cycle right there in the user interface, right there in your documentation. You're not making them leave your documentation to go somewhere else to order a part or pick up a phone and call. Just click here and we'll ship you a new XYZ. And suddenly now documentation becomes a profit center, not a cost center, which means you get paid more because you're generating revenue for your company. All right. Okay. I have to say, you just don't snap your fingers and suddenly you're doing structured authoring. Oftentimes you have to import your legacy content from Word into a content management system. If you were a good writer and you were using your heading 1s and heading 2s and headings 3, it's easier to then automatically parse those in individual topics. Not so easy if your whole manual is written in normal and overriding the formatting for each topic. Now someone has to physically go in there and copy and paste, right? Second problem is overcoming resistance to change. We like doing our documentation in Word. We don't want to go to this database publishing stuff. Third problem you might run into is there's cost involved with porting your legacy documentation and training everybody up again on how to use a content management system and structured authoring. The good news is the cost savings on the back end usually far exceed the cost to implement it in the first place. So where do you start? First is admitting you have a problem, right? If they don't think they have a problem, they're never going to change. And that includes your documentation department. And it also includes getting buy-in from this, from management. So you've got to build a vision. You've got to show a return on investment. You got to build a business case, right? Get corporate backing, right? If you talk to any CMS vendor, they will have tons of white papers to give you on the beautiful costs of how to generate revenue using their product, right? And then if you don't pitch it to management and get buy-in from the top, you're not going to get everybody around the table talking in one voice with one plan with one language, okay? And then you need to get away from this viewpoint that we're just documentation, a manual that has to be there, like bubble wrap and a box when you purchase it at the store. You are an integral part of the product development team, and start carrying yourself as such and positioning yourself. And I've got a whole another topic that I do on branding and positioning. One of my favorite sayings, and Kevin's heard me say this multiple times, is that one of my favorite sayings from a movie are the seagulls in Finding Nemo, where they go, mine, 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 mine. We are the documentation experts. Whenever there is a content project, we should go, mine. I'm the content expert. Let our team do that, not marketing, not training, not sales, okay? And really, it's not about a tool. Any of the CMSs that on the market will do what we talked about tonight. Some more than does the integration part 4.0 better than others. And you also have that overcoming resistance to change that I've already mentioned. But where do you start? Conferences, shameless plug, is a good place to start. I teach a whole conference on content management and content strategy, but there are plenty of webinars out there. You don't have to go to a physical conference. DITA, which we've mentioned earlier in the day, stands for Darwin Information Typing Architecture. It's just a standard on which the information is stored in a CMS. So if you leave one company and go to a different company and they're using a different tool, but they're both DITA based, then it's easier for you just to pick up and keep going because it's a common standard. So start by learning data. Andrew will tell you that I've had data openings for weeks now that I can't fill because everyone's working and I can't find people with the skills they need. For a full-time staff position, yeah, they will probably hire you and teach you data, but not for a 3-month contract. They want you to get in, get out, get done. They want you to already have it. Okay, good. So at this point, here's my contact information. I've already put my email in the chat window. I'm going to do it again. And then I'm going to come off screen sharing. Kevin, would you put my email address in the chat window? I can't talk and type at the same time. Let me come off screen sharing and have everyone go into gallery mode. And we covered a lot of territory in this thing, from what is structured authoring to integrating it with the world and saving the world with your technical writing integrated to everything. So questions, and just come off mute and ask away. This is going to be a very quick evening if nobody asks questions, because I left plenty of time for questions.
I love that toaster printer thing.
Isn't that a great idea? I so want a toaster printer.
That sounds familiar. Didn't somebody do that? It sounds awfully familiar.
I've seen Virgin Mary appearing on toast, but never a corporate logo.
So I've seen ones where you can do like Batman or a Cylon or something to that effect, but those are all pre-programmed, not something where you can actually program the toaster in order to print what you want it to do.
Oh, funny.
I mean, I'm sure you could hack it. Like the Cylon one, you can get it in the firmware and, you know, decide whatever you want to do with it, but you got to be pretty talented.
Patrick, on Clue eats his piece of toast. I planted that.
Well,
I have
there
you go.
Yes, Nikki.
Yes. I was thinking of all the people skills that are needed to get this done. Like, for example, you say that the tech writers should be, you know, producing all the content, even for marketing, yada, yada, yada.
Oversimplification, but continue.
But it sounds like, I mean, do you have any stories of companies that have done that and done it successfully? Because, you know, people, especially in large organizations, tend to be rather territorial, you know, so maybe you could make a separate presentation just on that. It's not the technology, it's the people skills that you need.
Well, Nikki,
sorry,
not to keep bringing up LavaCon, but it was at the last LavaCon, and one of the attendees put in the chat window, because we were using Slack, not Discord, but Richard, you wouldn't like it because, you know, I turn off all the notifications as well. But Hillary Marsh asked, what are the biggest problems you were having implementing CMS and structured authoring? And she got 25 answers, none of which was the technology. It was getting buy-in from other departments. It was other departments adding words to the controlled vocabulary list without telling everybody else. It's supposed to be controlled vocabulary for a reason. And it was other people just creating tags willy-nilly. And it was really a change management problem, not a technology problem.
I think you said governance. That's a word there too.
Yep.
It's a question of governance and who decides on those terminologies, and then.
Well, I mean, you give everyone carte blanche to do whatever the heck they want, and you've got marketing putting hashtags on everything, and now it goes everywhere, and then you really don't have a strategy towards your content. Now you just have, you know, a mishmash of all of this information and nowhere for it to flow.
Right.
I was just talking with the one of the founders of Bluestream content management systems, who was trying to sell this into a company. And so most documentation managers came up from being a tech writer. Tech writers are not known for being a very over the top type A extrovert person will just go up to management and go, hey, manager, hey, CEO, let me sell you on this. And they were timid. They didn't want to go up to management. And he was saying, listen, just introduce me to your chief technology officer. I will go in and tell them this is the benefit of integrating your part catalog with your sales CRM system, with your documentation, and doing it in a common platform like ours. And this is the result you're going to see. You're going to get more sales, lower support costs, lower development costs. And it really takes someone at the top overlooking each one of these content silos, as opposed to trying to start the one silo and sell it up. So you sell it up, and then it has to come from top down.
And I think that's a phenomenal point, because the thing is that, and I am definitely preaching to the choir here, even though that I've never done technical writing in a professional sense. I did it in the military. But at the same time, what I see from technical writers is our department needs money. We want to be as important as everybody else. And this in a very, very quiet voice in the corner of the room. Where
in the basement.
Hold on, in the basement of the corner, well, the corner of the room in the basement, behind like 3 locked doors and a shower of
water dripping down
material.
Like
but anyway, I digress. And the thing is that, and they're like, well, marketing gets all of this money. Marketing is the most boisterous out there. I can go ahead and sell you, I can sell, a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves type of individual. And the thing is that, and you are getting more integrated as far as that's concerned, where the UI UX, those guys are still technical writers, but they are more marketing than they were as far as the technical writing scene was concerned. And now you're starting to get that attention. Now you're starting to get, that inflow of funds and things of that nature, because of the fact that, and Jack just brought up a great point, where you tended to be more introverted. You tended to be quiet, like, where I know that this is important, but I can't exactly figure out how to make this the bright, shiny ball of, potential revenue that marketing can do with a cat commercial, or, with, a cat playing a piano. Be like, hey, listen, that already exists. We can go ahead and take that content and we can put it on television because it's public domain. Well, that's a great idea. But the thing is that they were able to get in front of that individual to tell him that information. And I think that one of the things that are the bright shining ball when it comes to technical writing is that integration between UI and UX, and coming together and really bringing together that silo in order to get that maybe introverted extrovert that can get in front of that money man and say, hey, listen, this is what we need. This is what we need to do. And this is how we need to do it. Rather than trying to make, rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, or trying to reinvent the person when it comes to a technical writer to begin with. I think that integration between those individuals or those professions are actually going to, lead the way into that, tech writing 4.0 or documentation 4.0 echelon, rather than, trying to redo what we've already got.
So if I understand you correctly, it sounds like you're saying tech writers need to reach out to the marketing people who are extroverts and who know how to sell this sort of thing. Yes. And sort of sell it to them first.
Well, and I think that what I was attempting to say was, I think the UX UI developer aspect are kind of like that great combination of the technical knowledge as well as the marketing, as well as the sales, that can go ahead and bring that to the next level, rather than trying to make the marketing people take away from their own budget in order to contribute to structured authoring or into tech writing whatsoever. I think that the more of an area of partnership would be more in that UX UI area rather than trying to have it integrate with marketing. But
Yeah,
at the same time,
Hold on,
but
hold on.
but at the same
Hold on.
time,
No, let me cut you off there for a second.
go ahead.
Is that not, it's true for some organizations, not true for others. And June brought up their Adobe's currently doing their Data World. Now, here's a secret that not a lot of TechCom people know, that Adobe has a CMS for marketers called Adobe Experience Manager, right? And I would guess they have maybe 80% of the marketing market. What Adobe's now done is added a data add-on for TechCom people. So what you can do is go to your marketing people and find out what CMS they are using and going, great, there's an add-on so we can both be using this.
yeah. Okay. Well, I think I misunderstood what you were saying earlier, the UX people, because in many, or I've known organizations where you actually had departments organized. This was at IBM actually, where the UX people and the tech and the tech writers were like reported to the same manager, you know, and then that was sort of the spirit throughout the, you know, throughout the organization. So it's the UX, like the designers, the folks that are doing usability testing and that sort of thing, that are a little bit more extroverted, but not quite as
as marketing, right? And that was my point, to where they're kind of like, you know, they're that good hybrid of people with technical knowledge, as well as the ability to explain that knowledge, as well as also just to schmooze. You know what I mean? Schmoozing is very, very important. And Jack and I were just talking about this at a recent conference. But also, so not to do another shameless plug to LavaCon, but over the last 2 years, we've been focusing a lot on going ahead and breaking down those silos and trying to work together. As far as, you know, saying, hey, marketing, we do just as an important job, maybe even more important, but we never say that to marketing because then they would just cut us off. But the thing is that, you know, when you're saying those things and when you're putting it in that light, where you're like, hey, you can make a better sale if you can say, you know what, we have one of the best user interfaces, or, you know, we have one of the best technical support systems, you know, you can answer a question within 5 seconds of a chat bot because our content is so integrated that it's just there. It's right there in front of you. And when Jack was talking about
Kevin,
things like going to a sales floor,
Kevin, can I intervene here for a second?
Go ahead, Richard.
Jack, do you want to say anything else before I turn off the recording? That way we can, and if anybody wants to say something more sensitive, they can, we can keep talking. And so I'm going to turn off the recording. But Jack, do you want to say anything first?
No, I think I did a good summary. A lot of people, if you want more information about this, email me. I know people. I don't do a lot of this myself, but I know people who do. So I would be happy to make introductions. Or if you had a question you don't want to make in a public environment or not recorded, you are more than welcome to ask it after the recording or just email the question directly to me. Before you go, the little ... menu in the bottom of your chat window is you can save the chat window and refer to it later. So it's a good way to get to some of the questions and other comments that attendees made that I didn't get to in the presentation itself. So,
I
and
raised my
recording.
hand virtually. This is Andrew Davis. Jack, I sent you 3 questions direct on the chat. You don't have to answer them for public scrutiny, but I'm hearing lots of pushback from my world on structured authoring and how it slows people down. I'm also hearing a lot of pushback from people who say, I'm writing in a Git source control environment. Data and Git don't talk. Do you have any comments? And the third question I have is, how do you sell data if you're not translating?
That's a harder sell because a lot of the cost savings comes from the translation savings.
Yep.
unless you are doing the 4.0 where you're integrating to your sales system, you're integrating your documentation with your marketing system, then you're going to see the return on investment. But just moving from structured, non-structured to structured for that, the joy of it is not going to get a huge return on investment. It's, however, unless you're merging companies and you're acquiring companies and you need to have everybody on the same page, reusing the same content across multiple silos, that's easier to sell. Now, I have not heard the same complaint that you have about tech writers complaining that it's slower to do structured authoring than in Word, so I can't talk to that.
They're not using Word.
A technical expert enough to talk about integrating GitHub either. I'm sorry.
Mhm.